Alright, Avatar The Last Airbender live action Netflix thing that's happened. So, right off the bat, I'm 3 episodes in, so this is first impressions. I hate everything so far. Just to get that out of the way. If you want to jump straight to what I liked and didn't like, timestamps below, but we're going to rant a little bit first. So, obviously, this is just first impressions, what I got from the introduction of the characters and the series. I have been told in my comment section that episode 4 is kind of when it starts to find its stride and get better, so I am hopeful. Now, I was going in semi-optimistically because there's a live-action movie that does not exist, so the bar is already on the ground. Like, I watched Winnie Pooh, Blood and Honey not all that long ago, so my expectations for movie quality are already really low. So it just gotta be better than this, and to be fair, it clears that on-the-ground hurdle. When the teaser trailer was announced, and I reacted to that on here, I was not impressed, but then I realized mostly I'm just really nervous because of how bad I know it could be. Thank you, Shyamalan, movie does not exist. So I'm like, you know what? I'm hearing all this stuff that's slowly coming out, the writers are leaving, they're taking away Sokka's sexism, they're taking away the comment, and they're trying to make it appeal more to a Game of Thrones audience. And they're appealing to Game of Thrones Season 8 fans who like a spectacle and not good writing. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to step away from everything that they're saying. I'm not even going to watch the actual trailer. I'm just going to wait till the movie comes out, or the show comes out, and I'm just going to treat it as its own thing. And we're going to see what happens. I'm going in with no expectations, and by God, that did not help me. My God, I hate everything about this. So before I jump into what I liked and didn't like, I gotta address the main criticism that I'm seeing for people reacting to this online who are just saying, you're being too harsh on this because all you wanted is a one-to-one adaptation. You're not going to get that. This is its own thing, its own medium. You have to treat it as its own thing. I'm trying to treat this as its own thing. It doesn't want to be its own thing. It wants to exposition dump stuff that so you're never confused. And when you hear people complaining that, oh, that's not how it was done in the original, sometimes it is just someone complaining because it's not how it was done in the original. But the majority of the time, I'm seeing people complain because there was a reason for why it was done this way in the original. It was meant to convey a certain theme, emotion, character trait. And when you remove that or change that, you are inherently changing the character, their personality, the theme, the message, the core heart and soul of the source material. So to change that or represent it poorly is obviously just a disservice to the story you're trying to tell. I am 100% for changing things when a series is being adapted into a new medium. I want them to change it. I don't want to have a sweet clue how the plot's going to unfold, even though I read the original or watched the original. Best way to explain this is when like Shyamalan came out with the movie that does not exist. After I actually quit that like 3 times. After finishing that movie eventually, I'm like, this would have been a great thing to condense down. So the main trouble with adapting book 1 is it's a long journey to get to the Northern Water Tribe. So how do you get there sooner? Do you start there and tell things in flashback so you don't have to have all these in-between moments or something? And then I'm like, why do we have to tell the exact same story? We already have it flawless in the original. So if the issue is our time constraint in this new medium, whether that be shorter TV series or full-length movie, just change it. Keep the heart and soul of the characters, but change the actual plot. I don't know if this is unpopular opinion, but my thought from the original movie, does not exist, was why do we have to go to the Northern Water Tribe? Well, to find a master. What if there was already a master in the South? Well, you can't have a master in the South because of the raiding of all the villages and the attacks by the Fire Nation. Katara is the last waterbender. Okay, so we have a situation where the sister tribes are cut off due to the war. What if they try to reestablish communications, and for whatever reason you want to make for the plot, Princess Yue came to the Southern Water Tribe on diplomatic missions. Now you have the opportunity to develop her relationship and character dynamic with Sokka, And she's going to need a protector, so you have a master waterbender there with Katara, and they can have their cultural clashes. Now when Aang wakes up, he has a master waterbender teacher right there to go off on a completely different adventure and make it be working for the timeline of a movie or TV series. A simple change changes the plot. Is this a stupid idea? Probably, but I want something new. I want a completely different situation. Take the characters, plop them in an alternate universe where one little change was made and see how it affects the plot. I am all for that because we already have a flawless story in the original, and the animation is inherently the best way to tell that story. So by making it live action, you can't do it the justice it deserves, in my opinion, without a huge timeline. And if you're not going to commit to a 22 episode TV series or something to really do it one for one, why are you trying to do it one for one? Just change the plot. I don't understand what the issue would be with making a change. Okay, that's enough of that ranting. But what I care about in an adaptation is that the characters feel the same. The heart and soul of the characters, their personalities, their values, the messages that they try to convey throughout the story, that is what I want to be adapted accurately, more or less one-to-one. I want them to feel like the same characters. The situation they find themselves in can be completely different, but I want them to still be themselves and their character. So there's my little rant there. In bringing up the changes that I heard about before starting this, getting rid of Sokka's sexism, I did not like it initially, but I think it didn't go terribly in this first 3 episodes because they kept the other core part of his character in wanting to prove himself as a great warrior, to hold himself to the values his father, or the responsibilities his father had left him, and wanting to be brave for him, be a warrior like his father, and not knowing how to do that, having no role models around him, having to figure everything out on his own, putting the pressure of protecting the tribe as just a child onto him. Yeah, that worked well. He's also still sarcastic. He's funny. He has good, decent comedic timing. This character feels like Sokka, and I have no complaints with him throughout this first 3 episodes. No actual complaints. But the fact that you made Sokka my favorite of these characters that have so far been introduced of the main core cast, how did you do that for, like, episode 1 Sokka? I didn't like him till, like, season 2. I hate that Katara does not feel like herself. She is preachy and has lots of monologues, but you have removed her anger, her compassion. Well, her compassion's still a little bit there, but barely. It's more in the form of monologues. But to get rid of her jealousy of seeing Aang, the actual avatar who has mastered these elements a zillion times in past lives and just has a natural fortitude for elements with the exception of Earth because opposite of air, and that's his real strong suit here. But to see him excel in waterbending and her be jealous of that is a core part of her character, and seeing her struggle to learn to waterbend before becoming a master, how she went through it was a huge part of her character. So in like episode 2, she's talking about, I couldn't bend a thimble, but now look what I can do. Just by being around him, it's almost as if he's producing some kind of spiritual energy that's making her a stronger waterbender, and not doing this on her own and through her own power. Also removing her rage that released him from the iceberg itself. I cannot tell you how disappointed I am with the execution of Katara's character. It does not feel like her. Ending Jessica, because I forgot. My rage, my absolute rage for one moment. There was a scene when Katara and Sokka were arguing, and he looks at her and says, you have to grow up, because she's falling for Jet's ruse, his personality, believing him that the engineer is really the bad guy. My actual God, when he tells her to grow up, when she is literally supposed to be the mother figure, forced into responsibility at such a young age, to the point that he cannot remember his own mother's face because all he can picture is Katara. Are you kidding me? The rage that brought me. I can't even. Aang is, you remove the most important part of book one, the themes of running away from one's responsibilities, being accountable for one's actions, the pressure that this child had thrown upon him. So in the original, you don't really find out you're the Avatar until about age 16 years old, but with the looming war, Aang, like 12 years old, had the knowledge that he is the Avatar and has to leave his home to continue his training, to master the elements, to save the world because the Fire Nation's about to throw everything out of balance. That is a lot to put on a 12-year-old. So when he finds he's going to be taken away from his family, he chooses to run. He is scared. He is a child. He runs. And to run from one's responsibility and now having to come back, face the consequences, that is a huge part of the themes of book one of the series and throughout the entire thing. But what happens in this remake? He maturely says, I need to get away to clear my head. He is not running. He's just going for a ride and gets caught in a storm through no fault of his own. So you're removing the part of his character that carries the core theme of book one. If we're not translating the themes, what is the point of this series? Which leads to the question, who is this even for? Is this series for new fans? For old fans? Because it's definitely not for the old fans, because it exposition dumps everything as if to say, you can't be confused. And if you already watched the original, then you're not going to be confused. But we can't let anybody be confused, so let's just exposition dump everything to the point that we're giving you the title intro thing twice in one episode. I don't understand the choices that were made in this. While we're talking about the characters, let's talk about Zuko. Did a good job. I think Sokka's still my favorite in terms of who executed the portrayal of their character the best, but Zuko's a close second, just because he is definitely an overdramatic teenager. He is trying to be serious, full of authority, responsibility, and doing what he feels will bring him honor and doing things correctly in terms of how he treats his crew. But also how he doesn't like when his crew is like disrespecting other superior officers, even if that officer is someone he himself doesn't like. You can't gossip about a superior officer like that. You have to show respect. He's prone to outbursts. He's cringy at times. He's an overdramatic teenager. He feels like himself. So I have nothing against his character. And before I get into the real negatives that I have about this series, please know no criticism I ever make will ever be directed at anyone who ever plays Uncle Iroh, because this character is the best character in fiction, full stop. Like, I love Harry Dresden. I love him so much. Uncle Iroh. Flawless. And there is no actor on this planet who could read a single line of dialogue from Uncle Iroh, who could watch a single second of him on screen and not go, my God, this character is important and I have to do him the justice he deserves, so I will pour everything I can into depicting this character properly. So whoever in any situation is playing Uncle Iroh, I trust that they will give it them all. There is no phoning this in, and it's really hard to screw up this character because you understand from the moment that Uncle Iroh is a wonderful character, and no one in their right mind would purposely screw that up, and this actor specifically is doing a fine job with Uncle Iroh, and I completely trust that it will continue to get better, and the moments I've seen from him have been fine so far. I've enjoyed Uncle Iroh. Alright, so my issue with the series starts off in the very first second of episode 1. And this is definitely 100% a me issue and with like modern day storytelling. I'm kind of becoming a fan of the classics, so it's just how stories are depicted in modern day and the trends. And that's a bad way to phrase it, but whatever. When you open up on a action scene, and it was a really good action scene. I think I understand why they did it. The depiction of earthbending to dispel the idea that we're going to have terrible CGI and that meme of them throwing a rock from the original. Yeah, I can understand it's very important to show the audience, hey, we have incredible CGI right now. And these attacks and movements and designs are impressive. We put a lot of work into this, and they have. It looks great. But my issue with starting with an action scene as your hook and introduction, to me, personally, and this is 100% a me issue, it feels like a hey, the audience of modern day have a 0.1 second attention span, and if you don't grab them right away, they're going to check out. With modern streaming and binging media, they have so many options. They'll turn this off if you just have a slow intro. So you need a strong hook, action, power to grab them, to keep them entertained. That is what it feels like to me. It's probably wrong, and I'm sure I've enjoyed shows with a big action to start, but to me it feels like the creator does not trust the audience to pay attention and be in for the long game, so they don't trust a slow opening to build environments and characters and themes, and they have to do something epic first, or else you're going to turn it off. And that just feels a disingenuous, like you're speaking down to your audience a little bit. You're not trusting your audience to have the patience and maturity to watch it. And that, again, me issue. It's probably, it's better explained in overly sarcastic productions on intros, so they can explain it 1,000 times better than I ever could. And they're not criticizing it, really, in that either. But it turns out in this one particular instance, I was right, because my God, the creator of this series does not trust you to just wait and let the story happen and you slowly experience it to make everything unfold. Which goes back to, who the hell is this even for? Because new fans know the history. Sorry, original fans know the history, they know the setup, they know the world, they don't need the constant exposition dumps. But apparently, the creators feel the need to exposition dump everything. We get the title intro on who the Avatar is and the 4 elements and the world's out of balance when the Fire Nation attacked twice. First by Avatar Kyoshi and then by Gran later on. We get exposition dumps on the war, the comet, how bending works, everything that's happening, how everyone is feeling. At one point in time, Aang is technically speaking to himself, and maybe it's okay to talk through your own emotions, but he's doing it in front of Appa, talking to Appa, which really means he's talking to the audience to say, this is how I'm feeling right now. So, because it's like the creator is not trusting the audience to figure this out by themselves, and they are not allowing you to be confused for any moment before they're exposition dumping, explaining. Is that a coincidence that I relate that to, oh, they have a strong action-packed hook because they treat the audience like a toddler who can't pay attention unless they're dangling something shiny and exciting in front of them? Probably I'm related, but that's what it feels like to me and makes me not like the opening very much, which I should like the opening because it's really, really, really cool. I also really like the attention to detail. You see the firebenders attacking and they have these big spiky armor, and as soon as I seen that, there's no like title of this being in the past or anything, but as soon as I seen that armor, I'm like, that's old firebending nation armor. Because I'm thinking of the original when Sokka is pointing that out to describe how the armor has changed when they're preparing for the attack. And then we get Sozin, and it's revealed that this is before the attack on the air nomads, and they plans for the Earth Kingdom to steal the plans of the war, but think that they're going to attack the Earth Kingdom to rally the forces and get everyone looking in the wrong direction. So I like that idea. I really like that inclusion. But I wish that that was probably the end of the episode, not the beginning. I'm always going to prefer that we introduce the characters, learn their personalities, their dynamic, their role in the story, and end on the hook. I'd never really like it when we open on the hook. All right, so going through, I've already mentioned that removing Katara's rage for her responding to Sokka's sexist remark being what leads her to scream, yell, unleash her power, and that anger is what reveals that though she is struggling to waterbend, there's power inside her, so foreshadowing for the future, and that being what cracks the iceberg open to release Aang. But instead, it's her trying to bring the canoe closer to them so they don't freeze and starve to death on this little piece of ice and then get back home. And somehow that unleashed a bunch of power behind her. Makes no sense. I don't like it. I'm also not a big fan of Aang and Katara together as like a couple. Not a fan. So I kind of like that we have removed every little bit of foreshadowing so far of their dynamic and development and relationship. all together. So, like, the first thing he sees when he wakes up in the original is Katara's face. And that's no longer the thing, unless he sees her before he passes out coming out of the iceberg when he's still more or less in the Avatar state. When he wakes up again, he's in the igloo, he's all alone, he goes out, sees kids playing, and later meets Katara and Sokka. So she's not even the first face he sees coming out of it in this situation. So if we're removing that, along with the fact that, oh my god, one of the most emotional scenes in the original, they're telling him no one's seen an airbender, air nomad in 100 years. Yeah, well, they must be in hiding, they don't want to participate in the war, who knows? But come on, how are anyone going to get to the air temples? You have to airbender, flying bison. There's no way the Fire Nation could have killed all the air nomads. He's not believing it until he gets there. He's screaming for his friends from Monkey Yatsu. I don't even think he really believes it's been 100 years. It's been a while since I watched the original. But then he finds the bodies and goes into that rage. To go from hopeful kids, playful, to this absolutely soul-crushing moment and into the Avatar state in rage. Katara's voice is the one who brings him out to say, you have lost your home, your friends, your family, so have we. We have lost our mother. We have all lost something from the Fire Nation, but we can be a family now. We can be a family together. We can be your family. Let us help you through this. Her voice brings him out of it. And that is a huge thing for their relationship in the future. Instead, no, he's just remembering Monk Yatso and what he said about being a good avatar and a good person, and that brings him out of it. We barely even hear Katara's voice in the background. So we are definitely not setting up any kind of relationship, whether that be romantic, platonic, or just developing any kind of connection between these characters. We're just going to cut those for the sake of time and plot. Yeah, he's also going to learn that the air nomads were wiped out through exposition dump with Gran in the middle of like a tribal meeting, and then runs off. And then kind of in denial, but we immediately go right to the bodies of the air temple. So yeah, no, just not executed well. While I'm going to talk about Katara and them, the costumes. The costumes are like 90% there. And they are gorgeous. Oh my god, they did a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful job on the costumes. And it's 90% perfect. But that 10% is the biggest 10% for me. I love good costumes. I do. I love fantasy costumes. But I want them to be world accurate, to look like they are lived in this world. If it looks like you just took a costume off the rack and went on a sound stage with perfect lighting, it's going to break my immersion near instantly. So to see them in this pristine blue outfits with no water stains or fading from the sun or clumping of the fur from like water or matting or anything at all. The fact that these outfits look flawless and perfect is mildly driving me up the wall. Aang gets an excuse because for all I care, he was in his new fancy robes for the festival that was going to happen. And the Kyoshi warriors, same thing. They can be ceremonial outfits for fighting. Yeah, I'll give those two a pass. But the Water Tribe, I have no excuse. Like that, just run it through the snow a little tiny bit. That's all I ask. If they had just dragged these, no doubt, very expensive, very beautiful, possibly fragile costumes in the mud and snow a little bit, I would have loved it. That goes to the environment. The fact that we're out in the cold and snow and ice and all this, and there's not even like a little redness on the nose and cheeks. I don't feel like we're in the cold. So while the costumes are beautiful, they like 90% of the time also break my immersion. Speaking about Kyoshi warriors, okay, Suki is beautiful, love her, but they made a choice to make her almost like as socially awkward as Sokka a lot of the times. Like, she doesn't know how to be around a guy she is attracted to and is quite awkward, and I don't know how I feel about that, but okay. So my main criticisms are the exposition dumps upon exposition dumps, because the creators of this do not want to let the story just happen, and they can't allow the audience to be confused for a second. And then, yeah, dialogue is stilted. The child acting is not fantastic, but I'm not too picky on acting that much, but they really don't have too much chemistry dynamic among the cast because they're so heavily in exposition dump territory, and the writing just feels very stilted. It's just like, can you take a breath, relax, just have a conversation. Make this feel like a conversation, not like you're trying to explain everything to me. And yeah, costumes, while beautiful, don't feel lived in this world. And the characters do not feel like themselves, with really the exception of Sokka of the main three, and Iroh and Zuko are fine. What did I like? There were some things I liked, believe it or not. So I said I liked the attention to detail with the armor of the past firebenders. I'm not just making that, so that's not just a small point for me. I love that detail so very much. The violence. I seen a woman getting burned alive in a tornado. This is a violent show, ever so slightly off screen. They're not doing it too much, but I love violence. So yes, that was an excellent inclusion. I love the fact that we seen the attack with Sozin's comet and the attack on the air temple. I love seeing them fight back. My main criticism was that Monkey Atso was in a cave, his body found surrounded by firebenders. He took them out. And you cannot convince me, I refuse to believe, that he did not suck the air from that cave, from their very lungs, and suffocate them to death before being taken out himself, maybe accidentally taking himself out or taking all of them out with him, but you will never convince me that he didn't suck the air from their very lungs. In the show, in the Netflix one, what happens? He knocks a couple around. There's some kids behind him, so he can't suck the air out of the room, I guess. He's trying to protect them, and then we don't really see an epic feat from him before Sozin comes in and exposition dumps that the comet is making them stronger, saying, perhaps on another night you would have prevailed, but not when we have the power of the comet, burns the air around him, and takes him out. And I'm just like, I wanted to see them take the air from their lungs. That's the one thing I wanted from the attack on the air temple. But besides that one little thing, the attack on the air temple, I really like how it was done, how it was handled, the violence, the brutality, really showing that the Fire Nation is brutal. I've already said the CGI is fantastic, and it really is a good decision to open with earthbending because you had to dispel the idea that's going to take like 6 men to move a rock and go, pew, pew. Oh, speaking of things I like, Sokka. I extremely liked when the Fire Nation was coming up to Wolf Cove, and he's like, I thought the Firebenders had honor and respect. Let's do this one-on-one, captain to captain, warrior to warrior. So in kind of not tricking and manipulating, but goading Zuko into fighting him one-on-one. And if he had won, theoretically, they would have left. Probably not. But I did like that he was trying his best to avoid a confrontation with the full army and just fight Zuko. And he holds up better than I would have thought. He does lose, but he does really well. So I like that moment with Sokka. And then, of course, his kid army and them throwing rocks trying to defend their home. That was great. When they go off to save Aang and he's leaving the eldest son that's still there in charge and telling them to make sure they stay on drills and don't let the young ones push him around. So I like that moment. And Aang saying that he's the bravest guy he's ever met. Those were good moments. In episode 2, everything with Avatar Kyoshi, full stop. I love Avatar Kyoshi, obviously. And seeing Aang embody her in the Avatar state and her slaughtering everyone in General Zhao, beautiful, flawless, no notes. That is like 2 minutes of flawless execution, storytelling, character, and action. 2 minutes that I love in that full hour second episode. That's it. I'm pretty sure that's the only thing I liked in that second episode. Azula's infiltration. Oh my god. I gotta talk about this one. They had Azula infiltrate a rebel group within the Fire Nation that was planning to attack Sozin. And, not Sozin, sorry. Ozai. God almighty. Oh my god, what a wonderful that idea that was. But 5 minutes. 5 minutes of an opening? Are you kidding me? That would have been a fantastic new addition to the story to show her rooting out rebels within the Fire Nation. I know she's pretending to be like someone from Ba Sing Se that's working in the palace now, so maybe these guys weren't Fire Nation, but who cares? To show rebellion in the Fire Nation during this time before they even knew the Avatar was back? That's an incredible idea. What I would have loved for episode 3 was to pair that with Jet's plan to make a spectacle in front of whoever's in charge at the village they're in, the Earth Kingdom there, Omashu. But instead, we have the time with the creator guy, so we're combining like 3 or 4 different story elements into that one episode. I just would have dropped the engineer plotline completely, maybe make it a side note, offhanded thing if it comes up later in the future. But to pair the rebellion and rebels with Jet and freedom fighters with the ones happening in the Fire Nation, just cut back and forth between those 2 stories for the full episode. Let us not know that's Azula, because I didn't look up any promotional images. I didn't know the actress that was playing her, not really. Didn't recognize her face. Have her be with these revolutionaries. Show relationships with them. Make us believe that she's really fighting as a rebel. And then the betrayal, the absolute betrayal, as we see her lead these people to their deaths, people that she had bonded with, made friends with, fed, to realize it was all an act, that her manipulation, scheming, led them to their death to be burned alive, and her smiling as who we thought were her friends die in front of her due to her loyalty to the Fire Nation as a whole. Oh my God, I would have loved that. Beyond reasonable measures. So that like 5 minutes, if it had been stretched to be like half the episode and develop those characters to watch them die, oh my God, develop the Fire Nation, develop Azula. Oh, I would have loved it. I would have loved it so much. Speaking of Jet, his actor, very fine, looks very accurate to the character, it's fine. But what I absolutely adored was earlier we had Katara trying to do the water whip. And for some reason, she's already an expert at the basics of water bending. And from Appa, can raise a big wave to cancel out a fire bending attack to save Aang when he was falling that time. When previously it had been Aang in the Avatar state that did that. And also, Aang had been like half drowning, and it was Katara's voice that called to him to make him regain consciousness, act dark state, go up, save everybody. They also cut that out. So another emotional moment of Katara's voice being what brings Aang power and comfort and back to the mortal plane and all that. Yeah, we're just going to leave that out as well. So she is very proficient at moving large bodies of water now, but the advanced techniques in water whip, according to Aang, requires more spiritual and emotional control and regulation of the techniques. So he tells her to focus on an emotion, on a memory. And she remembers when the Fire Nation attacked her village, killed her mother, the pain, the rage, the anger. And through that, she's unable to really make a strong water whip, and she doesn't understand why. It's not working. Meanwhile, cut to Jet, when they're talking, he tells her to also remember the good times. So she remembers her mother, smiling, happy, the sunset. And that emotion brings a stronger water whip attack. Reflecting back on the original series, where you have firebending currently being used through rage and fear and pain, but it shouldn't be that. It should be happy emotions. That is the way the true masters of firebending taught it and how it should be. So that was a lovely, lovely, lovely inclusion. All right, so that's all I got for the first 3 episodes. I have been told episode 4 is better. I'm not watching any other reviews other than anyone talking about only the first. Most people just talk about the first episode before they do a batch review. But I've only seen people talking about the first 3 episodes so far. So some people have said that episode 4 is when it starts getting good. Fingers crossed. I'm going to pretend I'm hopeful.